So welcome everybody. My name is Elizabeth Malafi. I'm coordinator of the Miller Center. So happy to have you guys here and so happy to be offering this series. If you've taken other classes directed towards nonprofits with Nicole Jean, you'll remember that the last time we had a program, we came up with this idea, like we needed more, we needed something that the programs would follow after each other so we could learn and grow from each program. So that's why we came up with the summer camp for nonprofits. And we really hope that this is just the start of more programs for nonprofits. I do want to let you guys all know that the Miller Center just became a part of the Funding Information Network, which is from Candide, who runs Foundation Center Directory. So it's going to increase what we can offer with the Foundation Center Directory. In all honesty, I'm still learning what being a member of this network means. So as I kind of get used to it and we start publicizing it, you will absolutely learn more about it. So thank you. And without further ado, I'm going to send it over to Nicole Jean. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. And thank you for your patience with our technical difficulties. I think we worked out all the kinks, so I do appreciate your patience. We're going to delve right in. We have quite a lot to cover. Like Elizabeth said, during the pandemic, we started talking about what kind of workshops we could offer virtually. And in one of our last sessions, the time just was so short and there was so much that we wanted to cover that we put this summer camp intensive together to kind of give you all some tools going into the fall. Shout out to Suffolk Literacy. Good to see you all here. And a few others that I recognize. Good to see you, Shannon. Also my soror, Latrina Turner from Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Grace, good to see you too. The whole idea was to give you all a nice toolkit going into the fall to prepare for the summer. Not sure how many of you are familiar with success visualizations. If you've done a visualization before or know anything about it, just let me know Y or N in the chat. Tell me yes or no if you've done a visualization before. We're going to take like 1 minute and we're going to do a success visualization. Visualizations are really powerful when it comes to taking on a task that may not be something you're used to or something that you are comfortable with. So the whole idea is that you hold in your mind, just for 1 minute, we're going to do 1 minute, what success would look like for you. Not the success, not the steps leading up to it, but what would success for your organization look like? And I'll give you some hints. When I visualize success for the Chamber of Commerce that I'm a member of, I think about large baskets of pledge cards and checks and money being passed along into the treasurer's office. So that's one visualization. Another visualization is a sponsor with a big smile handing over a check to you for, say, $25,000. So we're going to take a minute and just visualize success. We're not going to worry about the steps. We're not thinking about the obstacles, but we're going to start with 60 seconds of visualizing what the end result of success would look like. Even you smiling, I do that a lot. Woo, woo, woo. I visualize myself hooping. That's what my mentor said. Visualize yourself jumping up and down, clapping. Visualization, it releases endorphins, which helps to open up your mind to creative thinking. And that's what we want to do today. So I'll give you 60 seconds. We'll do that. You can turn off your camera if you like or turn it on, but just for 60 seconds.
Do you want us to post these?
You can if you like. I was about to say, very good. 1 minute, and post in the chat what you visualize. I posted that I visualized dancing, smiling, laughing. And of course, I told you about the big baskets of pledge checks. pledge cards, checks, and then celebrating winning with a big sponsorship, a big check getting handed over. Visualizing is really, really important for you, even if you do it as a board. When I do board retreats, we do like 30 or 60 seconds of mindfulness. Visualization also helps everyone get on the same page and hold in their mind something that's positive that they can all use as a goal for the day. So think about that when you're thinking about moving forward. How would you visualize success? Maybe it's hiring a new person, having them sign the offer letter and you shaking their hand, or cutting a ribbon on a new building, or depositing a check into the bank. Start with visualizing success. And then I asked you all to put in the chat what industry or sector you represent. So we have youth programs, we have literacy, we have a few people here that are doing energy. There might be some others. As the day goes on, definitely, as today goes on, definitely post in the chat some of the things about your organization. I just need to share, Elizabeth, if you can give me permission to share. Patient advocacy and support. Okay, very good. Someone visualizes more grant funds to serve more people. That's great. That's great. We have some people in the waiting room I'll let in. And should I end poll, Elizabeth? It says end poll. Okay. There we go. All right. So as you know, this summer camp is going to be 4 parts: expert fundraising. Next week is expert grant writing. Then we're going to talk about sustainability. And our last session is going to be where do we go from here? Elizabeth shared a link in the chat to an activity log. I would like you to write out your goal for today's session. And the last 10 minutes of today, we're going to talk about the action items that you can take towards working towards that goal. So one of the things, I think some of you may have had workshops with me before, I'm all about being very applicable. So I want you to be able to go away today with something that you can take back to your organization and use immediately. So today's agenda, very clear and detailed. We started with our success visualization. Everyone did a great job. Your intros, if you can chat, drop that, it would be great. Your mission, we're going to talk about in the basics. We're going to talk about creating habits. We have 2 activities. We're a small group, so we actually may be able to do that. I'll take a break, maybe for 2 minutes, you can work on it alone. And then we have enough space that we can share the results and speak as a group. We're going to also delve into donor retention. That's one of the hardest things. Getting someone to give is not the most difficult. It's retaining them afterwards and having them be a repeat donor. And we'll talk about a winner's success and some of the things you can do to amplify your success stories. A little bit about me, I think might be a good idea. I have about 25 years of experience in economic development, most notably as a grant writer. I've written and received grants for close to $100 million, if you total in the leveraging as well in public-private partnerships. I was also an executive director. I created fundraising plans, raised lots of money for different organizations at the grassroots level, mid-size and large. So these workshops really are best practices that I've learned. Also, some of the things that I wish that I would have known. And now I'm able to practice them. I'm a class of 2021 Empire Fellow in New York State. It's a highly selective leadership development program for New York State. I'm doing that in addition to running my business. So this is something that I do every day. I'm sharing with you what I do. It's not theoretical. So I want to start with talking about your mission. And I think most of you know, and I'm going to ask you a question. You can put the answer in the chat in a moment. Most of you know that fundraising for most people is an art. Some folks are just very good at asking someone to partner with their organization. But I believe that fundraising, what I have found is that it's a science, it's an art, and it's a practice. And the reason why it's all 3, number 1, I think it is, and number 2, it's learnable. These are things that you can develop within yourself with practice. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is building habits and building fundraising into the habits of your organization instead of centering it with one person. A lot of organizations feel like they bring in a fundraiser and that person is going to solve all their problems, or that fundraising is the executive director's job. Fundraising really is everybody's job. Oh, I think this bird wants to be a part of our workshop. Let me close this door, excuse me. Yeah, I guess the bird wants to be a part of the workshop. I'm here by my office and the bird is right there by the window. So one of the things that I want you to take away is that your fundraising plan or your fundraising outreach and efforts must be planned in writing. They have to be understood by everyone in your organization. Every person in your organization should be able to do what I call the 2-minute elevator speech. And I do this with boards all the time. We take a half an hour and we practice the elevator speech. Every person associated with your organization, from the board, the staff, and your volunteers, should be able to, in 2 minutes, articulate what your fundraising case is. Why should someone give to you? Why is your organization important? That's what we mean by understood. And third, your fundraising must be practiced regularly. Nothing beats consistency. One of the most effective ways to ensure fundraising success is to be consistent. And we'll talk a little bit, I think it's in the next slide or two, about planning fundraising events every year at the same time without fail. Even if a pandemic happens and you move it to an online platform, what you're doing is building that habitual muscle. The donor starts to understand that every year they're prepared to socialize, to celebrate, and to give to you. There was a point in my tenure as president of our chamber that people would email me and say, oh, is the dinner dance coming up? I want to make sure I get my seat. Is the dinner dance this year? Is the jazz on the sound? Are you all doing that this spring? I just want to make sure, because I'm planning my calendar. Those are the kind of calls you want to get. So it must be planned in writing. It must be understood and integrated throughout your whole organization. And it must be practiced regularly, whether you do 3 times a year, 2 times a year, or once a year. Or you might do 4 times a year. Maybe you do 3 events and 1 workshop, or you do 2 events and 2 outdoor activities for youth. Whatever it is, being consistent. What you want to move away from is coming up with a new idea and changing your fundraising scheme every year. There's nothing wrong with themes and trying out new stuff, but it's important for you to build habits with your donors, folks that know that every year they can count on doing this with you. According to the nonprofit source, 15%, there's been 15% growth in online giving since the pandemic. That's huge. Overall, 15% increase in online giving. And online giving works because in most cases it's free or it's easy. And in most cases, it doesn't require a long-term commitment. So if you create some sort of link with some of these vendors that are out there, some of them will let you try the process for free or for a very low entry point commitment. Folks can give once, they can give as a sponsor, or they can give what they want, or recurring. So they can give once and say, I just want to give $50. Click, no problem. I want to be a sponsor for $150. Click, no problem. I want to do recurring, $20 a month, take it off my debit card or out of my checking account. Click, no problem. So online giving is easy, it's fast, and in most cases, it's no cost. 30% of donors give online. So they've polled thousands of organizations. 30% of their donorship gives online. That is a tremendous portion of your donorship. That's what, 1 out of every 3? 3 out of every 10 people that give online. Online fundraising, 1,000 messages generally will net you on average about $42. 1,000 messages, that's direct outreach. So if you do 1,000 messages, you'll get you send it to 1,000 people, not 1,000 messages, you send 1,000 people your message, on average, you'll get back about $50. That's not a bad return on investment if it doesn't take you long. If you utilize some of the things we talk about today, which are newsletters and success stories, and format it, it's something you can just plug and play. You can take the format, cut and paste every month, and blast it out. take you less than 2 minutes. So if you send messages to 10,000 people, that would net you about $400, which isn't bad. And that's just an online appeal. That's not counting who you invite to your event. That's just an online appeal. So that number would only continue to grow. Now, how do you drive giving online? Is by engaging donorship regularly. That's how you get people to get used to giving online. Are there any other unique ways that you have tried that work? If you put that in the chat, I just want to see if there are any of you that have tried and been successful with any other online giving techniques. I'll let you drop that in the chat. Two of the almost guaranteed ways to drive online giving. First is you give people something to think about, and you second, give them something to celebrate. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Give people something to think about. If you provide your donors with unknown facts about your industry or ways that you're serving the populace differently, or maybe you've discovered a new partnership that has now expanded or helped your reach as an organization. Giving donors something that they aren't necessarily familiar with is a very good hook. Giving donors something that they didn't know, or new information that they didn't know, or information that they forgot about your organization. So for example, maybe they didn't know that the first Chamber of Commerce in the community started in 1933. Maybe they didn't know that. Maybe they didn't know that for every hour of tutoring that you all do, students' math scores go up 3 points. So give donors something to think about. Second, invite them to celebrate and say thank you. Everyone has been programmed to learn about people and their experiences. The explosion of social media, our access online, we're used to learning about people. So there's an explosion in this idea of getting to know everyone's brand and getting to know things about people. Fundraising is no different. People give to people. They don't give to programs. People give to people. The more you can put up in front of a donor through a newsletter or an email blast, information or insight about what you do and directly connect it to an individual or a group of people, doesn't have to show their identity, the more apt you are to drive online giving. Your mission should also inspire some planning, and that plan should be understood and integrated in all of your training. So I'm recommending now, particularly in the post-pandemic environment, that organizations integrate fundraising in their staff orientation, that the staff be exposed to the goal, how much you have raised, and what your goal is going forward. So the goal in the past, what you raised compared to that goal, and what the goal is going forward. Your staff training should reflect that. Applying the basics. One of the things that a lot of organizations struggle with is building habits, and habits of donors is enhanced by repetition. Remember, we talked about repetition, repeating your events, your appeals every year at the same time. So donors get hardwired into expecting to hear from you. Repetition and habits is what creates those steady streams of income and donations. The problem is that most of our efforts aren't consistent. So being consistent is what builds habits. And one of those things is to start with a fundraising plan. I'm going to actually show you some samples after our activity in about 15 minutes. I'm actually going to show you examples of a fundraising plan, a one-page appeal, a newsletter, so you can get an idea of what these things look like. And they're so simple to set up. You can probably get all these documents and all this collateral, fundraising collateral done in a matter of an hour or two with a dedicated team. So you want to set a goal, create something measurable, say $10,000 for the year. And you want to break that down and how you're going to get there, maybe by event, maybe by month. It all depends on what your appeal process is. Most organizations I've worked with, they use events as a trigger. So for each event, you may have a goal of $2,500, maybe for the gala, $5,000, and then the other two you have, $2,500 each, but you want a measurable goal. You don't want to sit in the room and say, we just want to raise however much we can get, because that isn't measurable. You want to be able to measure so that you can improve from year to year. So create a plan, whether it's events, a membership drive, sponsorships are very big, grateful donor and major donorship efforts. So sponsorships are incentivizing giving. So sponsorship, the sponsor gets something, either their name recognized, they get acknowledged at the program. In some instances, they're allowed to speak. So sponsorship is incentivized giving. Major donors is an effort that you take where you identify people that families or individuals or businesses who are in your industry or interested in your industry that can give large donations. Large could be, I always say a rule of thumb is 10% of your budget. That's considered major. If your budget is 20,000 and they can write a check for 4 or 5 grand, they're a major donor. If your budget is 100,000 and this person or organization or family can write a check for 10,000, they're a major donor. So 10% of your budget is major donorship. And those efforts take specialized approach. You have to take the time to get to understand a little bit about the target and about the family or individual or organization. And you have to find an entry point so that you can introduce your organization as an opportunity to partner. Membership drives and honoring people are some of the best regular fundraisers to give because it doesn't take a whole lot of effort. Honoring people works because these are folks that are recognized in the industry or in the community, and they will bring a draw to you. They will either bring people with them or they will encourage people to come. Again, it goes back to celebrating. Everyone loves a gala. Everyone loves to dance and have fun. Making it as fun as possible for your annual event is one of the best things you can do, even if your budget is tight. And I've done this with some organizations where they just had a cocktail reception. It wasn't a sit-down dinner, but they had a magician, they had jazz, and they had a raffle, and everyone had a blast. So think about some of the ways that you can celebrate, and you can also identify something to celebrate. Understanding your goals or integrating the goal, holding training, at least, I don't know, twice a year. I wouldn't say less than twice a year, at least twice a year with your staff, your board, and your volunteers. I'm often surprised at how many organizations do not share their fundraising goals and outcome with their public, their membership, their staff, and volunteers. I've heard, oh, well, we don't want people to know too much because then they won't give next time. Or if we didn't achieve it, we don't look like we're successful. None of those things could be further from the truth. When you allow people to know what your goal is and how close you've come to it, it gives folks an incentive to partner with you. It makes people feel like they're a part of what you're doing. So when you withhold information, you have an event and nobody hears anything else afterwards, no, email, thank you, we raised $8,000, or because of you, we can send 10 children to camp. Folks go away saying, well, why am I giving? What I do doesn't help. So giving and sharing your outcomes with folks, whether it's your staff, your board, your volunteers, your members, and your donors, it allows them to feel like they're a part of what you're doing. Again, habits. I have found that as long as I build a habit, the money and the donorship comes in. If we build a habit. The worst thing is to have a member of your organization, whether it's a staff member, a board member, a volunteer, have no idea about your organization's finances, meaning they have no idea what the goal is for the year. They don't know how much you need or how much you've accomplished so far. That's why I like those ticker tapes, those barometers. Whenever someone sends me an email, asks me for money and shows me their goal and how close they are to it, the more likely I am to give, because then I feel like I'm actually contributing to something solid. Knowledge is power. So you have no idea what the circle of influence may be for your board members, your staff, and your volunteers. It's really important for them to have that 3-minute speech or an elevator speech or the pitch down so that when they are in a position to ask or advocate, they have the information that they need. Good advocacy starts with preparation, and knowing is half the battle. So they have to be prepared. They have to know in order to be prepared to advocate. And then finally, practicing. Hosting events every year at the same time is like exercising a muscle in your donor's life. They get used to and look forward to your events every year. So they want to start planning their lives around your events. They want their lives to fit the time for you. And that's what you want to build. So practice becomes a habit, and the habit starts with a plan. So I would encourage you to create a plan to do 2 events, 3 events, 4 events, at least 1 a quarter, maybe 2 a year. You may want to do once a year, but I say at least 2 a year. And they should be at different price points, right? So one event is the $150 or more ticket, and then one event is $50, because you want to be able to have a large spectrum of donors, because your donors is where you get a lot of your volunteers also. Donors also give resources and time. So you want to have a diverse audience of folks to choose from. And please drop in the chat. There's some here. Let me just take a look at the chat. Yeah, getting the entire staff on board, have an elevated game night. People love that. And we have some more folks that gave us some idea of where they're coming from. Technology. And then someone talked about using Facebook as a fundraising platform. Absolutely. I've done it before and it works. It works. So now let's talk about this whole habitual thing. Today, this workshop is all about how you plan, how you move forward with attracting donors, how you retain them, the expert tools that you'll need. These are the things that folks hire fundraising consultants to do. You can take these tools back now and do them and be ahead of the game if you do decide to bring a fundraising professional in. So number 1 is creating a yearly target. Break it down into months and spread it out over your events. So if your yearly target goal is $10,000, how much is that per month? How much is that per quarter? That's $2,500 a quarter. Now you're talking about $2,500. You got 4 months to make $2,500. That's doable. That's about $800 a month. That's $200 a week. So now when you have a target and you're able to break it down into months and then spread it out over your quarterly, milestones, and then you look at what that would be per month. If someone writes you a check for $1,000, you say, yay, we're almost halfway to our quarterly goal. Our 2,500, we got $1,000. Or say your board comes up with a challenge giving contest. They all decide as a board that as a board of 12, they're going to do 2,000. They didn't say how much per person, but they've made this goal of 2,000. They said, wow, we almost got our quarterly goal. So breaking it down into a target is one of the first things that a fundraising professional is going to do for you. I guarantee it. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is going to be looking at your board. They're going to scan and assess your board. How many of them are giving? How can you incentivize and encourage giving? And how can you grow that base? Incorporating the fundraising goals into all of your engagement tools. So that means you want to be able to have your goals be a part of your finance team. When they have a meeting, that should be a discussion. At the beginning of every board meeting, there should be a 5 or 10 minute fundraising report back. If there are membership meetings, if you're membership driven, there should be something that's brought up at every meeting so that people understand what is the goal, how much are we raising and why. And I am always surprised when organizations, I've worked with them and folks tell me, well, no, we don't want to tell people because we don't want them to feel pressure. Well, pressuring is all about perception. A nonprofit organization functions by giving. So just perceiving yourself as giving pressure is a mindset shift that you have to undergo, because this isn't pressure, this is invitation. This is allowing folks to, or inviting them to partner to move forward with the mission. And then practice. I say you create a theme. So maybe your theme for the year is abundance, or abundant or joyful giving, or maybe it's gratitude, you know, being thankful that you can help so many people. Whatever that theme is, weave that theme throughout your events. I'm telling you, it makes a big difference. People remember people. So if you celebrate people, either honoring folks, if you have the ability to identify a grateful benefactor, someone that actually benefited from your services and resources, and they're able to be showcased. If you can identify a community or a community of practice, all of these things stick in a donor's mind. And you do that every year without fail. So before we move to the next segment, I want you to take just 30 seconds to think. This is some thinking time because you're going to go into your activities soon. Why do people give? What motivates a repeat donor? How do we build a relationship with a donor? And what is our value added? I'm just going to put that in the chat because I want you to think about that because we're going to talk about it.
Nicole, we did have a question.
Oh, I didn't see. Thank you.
From Eileen. Will you cover record keeping of donations?
I can. That's something that I had in my notes, but not in the PowerPoint. But I did have that in my notes, and that's something that we can talk about. Thank you, Eileen. That's good. Hold on.
Yeah, maybe a couple of minutes since it seems to be an interest.
I like that. That's donor tracking. Very good. So thinking about why people give, how we build those relationships. So I want you to just take now 2 minutes. We're going to do 2 or 3 minutes because let me take a look here at our time. And we have about, what, half an hour left? About a half an hour. I think if we take 2 or 3 minutes, this is good. Just take for a few moments. Why should a donor invest in your mission? What is your value added? We already know who you serve, but let's just talk about the value added. And these are some of the questions I put in the chat. Why are donors motivated to give? How do you build relationships? You can put that in the chat. We'll take 1 minute. It's 9:54. At 9:55, we'll come back and discuss. Yes, Elizabeth, that's great what you just said. All right, so we've had just a few minutes. I just wanted to hear just a few takeaways from folks. What are your thoughts about why people give? What motivates them? What's your value added? You can take yourselves off mute if you like, just for a moment, or drop it in the chat. It's no problem as well. And of course, I'll cover it a little bit. And I'm going to get to Eileen's point about donor tracking and record keeping. I'll talk about that too. Anyone feel comfortable sharing? That's okay. That's all right. Well, when we start talking, maybe you'll feel a little bit more comfortable when I start talking a little bit. So a few things. The reason why, like I told you, people give to people, they don't give to programs. So one of the three pillars of donor retention is focusing on a person or ideal, and getting people focused on feeling, right? We want to create emotional ties. We want people to feel. I think about these St. Jude commercials that come on YouTube about the cancer hospital. And I give to them also, family members give as well. But some folks may say, oh, it's over the top, it's too much. Well, no, not really, because you would never get to know a child with cancer. Because I spoke to some of their fundraising folks, they said, these children are isolated. You probably would never meet a family that's struggling with a child with cancer. So this is why we focus on the family. And I said, genius. This is genius, you know, and it may not be the right track for everyone, but it's the right track for enough folks, right? So getting people to feel is critical. They have to have an emotional tie to what you're doing. Just because it's good isn't going to motivate giving. So connecting to a person, focusing it on a person or an ideal, like creating a more just society for people that have learning disabilities, or creating more accessible buildings for folks that are, you know, that have issues with ability, different levels of ability, however you articulate it. You want to focus on a person or an ideal, and you want to get people to feel. You want to encourage emotional reaction. One of the things that I recommend is a live appeal at any event. You know, if you have a donor or a member that has the gift of gab and is really good at getting up in front of people and talking about your mission and what you've done for the year and why you need the funds to continue, that's a great motivator. It gets people to feel. Tie to identity and purpose. So you want to tie the person to the feeling and then to the purpose of why you're there. And then Christine Fitzpatrick, I see your hand up.
Hi, I'm so sorry that I am late. I'm Christine Fitzpatrick. I run a baseball program for children with special needs to play baseball.
Great.
I'm 11 years running. I have about 300 kids in my program and growing. Pre-COVID, I had about 1,800 volunteers a year. It's only a 12-week program, and I'm starting to get that back. When I do my golf outings, the one thing I do to connect with the people that are there that are playing and donate, I'm a golfer. I've been to golf outings. Sometimes I've been to outings and I don't even know why I'm there, or what the purpose is. So I bring the kids in for the dinner. And I have a lot of children that are on the spectrum, Down syndrome, that are phenomenal speakers. So last year I had one of the boys get up and speak, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. So I make that connection when we're there, and that's what the donors look forward to.
Yeah, and I think I think when it's done in the right spirit of things, it's a win-win, Christine. Like Christine said, she brings the children in, the participants, to speak. And it gives them an opportunity to grow in areas of public speaking, you know, because this is going to be a part of their life forever. Whether they're stay close to home or they go away and live independently. This is something that they're going to use as a practice for themselves. So if you can integrate your participants in speaking and advocating, all the better. We are in an explosion of documentary. If you look at Netflix or Hulu, half of the content are real life stories. So people are tuned in to learn about people. And when I get to the slide, I'm going to list the different ways to celebrate. One of them is success stories, documentaries, documentary short films like documentaries, video montages. People are tuned in now. They really want to learn about people. That's why what Christine just said about at the golf outing, integrating your participants, there's actually nothing better than that. Grateful benefactor is the top when it comes to the most effective ways for people to give. Because remember, you're inviting folks to partner with you. That's really what you're doing. So how should you be spending your time? As an organization, how should you be spending your time? Focus on a person or a benefactor, encouraging, feeling, all of that. That's the soft part of fundraising. But what about the actual quantitative? How much time should you be dedicating to this? Well, in the fundraising world, half of your time goes towards building partnership. So that's looking at affiliations of your board, staff members' circle of influence. Even look at the folks you consider a competitor. When I was an executive director of a housing industry, one of the first things I did, I created a housing symposium, and every executive director that wanted to had a part in the program. We did a symposium where we talked about the future of housing on Long Island. And it really built real partnership between us for us to utilize and work on for the future. And then building friendships. We call fundraising, there's also friend raising. You know, some folks may not give a whole lot of cash, but man, they can direct you into some directions that will work for your organization for years, whether it's partnerships, resources, space, discounts, etc. So half of your time is building partnership. 25% are looking at identifying sponsors. I would start with the people you use that you already give your business to. You want to make sure you know, and this goes to Eileen's point, when you start talking about tracking, donor giving, you also want to track the folks you do business with. They are the first ones that you send a sponsorship form to. Your accountant, your lawyer, your Uber, the folks you use for transport, Walmart, Target, wherever you, I don't know, Sam's Club, wherever you get, I don't know who you do business with, but whoever you do business with, that's the first line of asking for partnership. And you want to incentivize giving. You want to be able to give them some acknowledgement. You also want levels of membership, baseline, and then you want to have levels of sponsorship, which I'll show you, you know, bronze, silver, gold, or pearl, diamond, sapphire, whatever that might be. You want to make sure that you have levels so that everyone has a comfortable option for giving. And then you also want to have goal board. You want to have goals for your board members. You know, maybe it's $500 a year that they give or get. Every board I've served on, I had a give or get goal of $2,000 to $3,000. I either gave it or I got it. And then 25% is celebrating success. You want to identify a trusted spokesperson within your organization. Create a regular newsletter. Use visuals, photos, videos, and suggestion boxes to engage donors. I just did with a client, we just did an online competition. So we did like a trivia, and they had a week, the members had a week to answer, and we gave prizes. You know, just because we know there was a lull between now and the holiday event, we did a trivia. We did an online trivia just for the members and the board. And it was a lot of fun. It was all virtual. So you want to spend your time, when you're talking about fundraising, you want to spend your time looking at partnership, sponsorship, and celebrating success. Now, when we talk about, I want to talk about donorship tracking. One of the things that you want to do, you can start very simply. You can start simply with an Excel spreadsheet, or you can use software like Razor's Edge. All of these work. Oh, hold on, let me just, it's a little loud, hold on. Thank you. A little bit loud. I didn't want to distract everyone. So yeah, one of the things that you can do, and it can be very simple, it could be Excel, it could be Razor's Edge. These are software packages that you capture and record your donors' information, the year that you first connected with them, and then you track when they give. And what will happen is you can create reports that show the cycles of your giving. So I've been in organizations where we have found that most of our giving happened in the wintertime, between Indigenous Day and the holidays. Usually like early November to maybe mid-December was where the majority of our, some of it was then, and then also, believe it or not, in the summer, because we would have summer events, but the spring was really, it wasn't that active for us. So it will help you target when you should be connecting with your donors. So if you know that they give around the gala, that's their engagement period, then you know that you can start sending information or making a call. I always recommend a call log that you also record. I think that every donor should be called at least once a year and be able to talk to the president or the president of your board or your ED, your executive director. That goes a long way. If someone's giving like $1,000 every year, they deserve a phone call once a year. So you can start very simply with Excel, or you can invest in a fundraising software package like Razor's Edge. I'm old school. They have new ones now that I've used that are all cloud-based. They all do the same thing. You put in the donor's information, everything you know, you put in the dates of engagement, and then it will track it and it will give you a report. Quarter, you could do it for the quarter, for the month, for the year. And it will give you a visual of when and how people give. And that's going to help you when you develop your fundraising plan to identify when your peak periods are and when your off-peak periods are. Because during off-peak is when you have engagement that's centered on bringing people in. Your peak periods, you should be focusing on engaging with donors that give regularly. And I see there's a question here. Oh yes, Network for the Good. And there was another one that I used that was cloud-based as well. Yeah, Network for the Good. Network for the Good is good. Yeah, I've used them. And there's another one that's cloud-based. I'll find it when we start talking. I just used it a year and a half ago with a client, all cloud-based. Winning strategy, leveraging, attracting, and documenting. So you want to leverage partnering with other organizations, of course, which I know you all are doing. But attracting is something that you can build on year to year, which is creating very simple incentives. And also think about automating giving. Really invest a little bit of time in investigating whether or not automatic giving would work for your organization, for your donors, allowing them to give regularly through their checking account or through a debit card. That's something to think about. Also, invest in documentation. I recommended and used some seniors at Hofstra University and at LIU to create video montages and YouTube repositories. So they created like 10 YouTube videos of success stories, highlighting success stories of the organization. And they made a video montage. These were like videography majors, and they got credit for that. Also, writing an op-ed piece. I would write an op-ed piece at least twice a year to be in the newspaper and would talk about your organization. Usually op-ed pieces have to focus on a particular issue and what your organization's solution is to that issue. And then of course, creating a newsletter. So you want to identify a grateful benefactor or a success story, someone that's done great in the long term. You want to be able to share that with folks that you feel comfortable with, whether it's your membership, your board, etc. And you want to give an opportunity to celebrate. You want to bring folks together so that you can celebrate all the great things that you've done. All right. So I'm going to share with you just a few really good samples of some engagement, what I call engagement collateral, newsletters, op-ed pieces, palm cards that allow them, donors to see in very simple terms, levels that they can give. I recommend at least 3 levels. Identifying membership benefits, so that folks can have an opportunity to join with you. They can give, but they can become a member if you're a membership-driven organization. Creating a community of practice. Like I created this housing symposium where we brought together the best and the brightest in the field to talk about an issue. And for us, it was affordable housing. And then of course, having events. So while I pulled those up, yes, I think that Hofstra, they were fantastic. I cannot say enough about the Hofstra videography communications majors. They were top shelf, extremely professional. They did a flawless job. You would never know that these were students. I told them, I said, you're going to have a great future in this. And they are in demand. They are in demand. They're in school and they're in demand already. So that gives you some indication. So let me see here. So newsletters, you can use something very simple. It does not have to be anything glamorous. It could be something simple that, templates that you have available already at the library, they can help. Microsoft has a template. I use a 1-page, 2-sided format, very simple. but something fun and engaging. That pictures, use pictures if you can. I don't have a lot of pictures for my company, but do pictures if you can, because I'm just consulting, but it's something for you to think about. If you can take pictures, and then of course have all of your events in one place, for the whole year. You want to always have that real simple upfront, a nice mix of things. You want to engage parents if you can. If you're a youth-driven organization, you want to have a nice little mix of things that maybe parents can also assist with. And then of course you can use Canva or Vimeo to create invitations that are really simple, very slick, really clean. I mean, we did this on Canva. We had over 100 people attend online and in person. We did this in an hour and a half with the help of our Hofstra students and LIU students, LIU Brooklyn. I was teaching there at the time, and they were able to help out. Here's a sample fundraising plan. It could be real simple in Word. You want your case for support. Who are you, what you do, how are you going to raise money? What's the goal for each of them? I mean, real specific. How are you going to market and brand yourself? Website, video documentaries, fundraising appeal for general audiences, branded material for sale, t-shirts, hats, keychains, bumper stickers. And then community engagement could be workshops that you do at no cost. And then you have your goals for the year, and you have them broken down by segment. You hire a fundraising professional, this is the first thing. They're worth their salt. That's the first thing they're going to do, is assess the board, scan the board, look at your historical giving, and then come up with a plan, some sort of plan that they can share, that you can share with them and develop together and break down your goals for the year. And I thought this was a really good, yeah, here it is. I thought this was a really good fundraising appeal. It shows the different levels of giving. Okay. Sponsorship, you could be a nail, hammer, lumber, become a sponsor, gold, bronze, silver. You always want to have levels. You want to tell them what they get, how they can pay. And this is collateral that you have year round. You have it available, it's on your website, you update it, and you use it regularly. You use it regularly, all year, every year. And when someone joins or is a new giver, a new donor, this is what they get in their hand or in the mail, within a day or two. It's a little bit about you. And the Hofstra folks helped create a palm card, which I thought was really good. What do we do? When are we meet? How can you contact us? Really good just to kind of hand people when they join. You could just email it to them even.
Nicole?
Yep.
Sharika is asking if you can share the fundraising template.
Yeah, I'll email it to Elizabeth. Not that one, that's someone else's, but I can email you the actual template, like the outline.
Yeah, that
I'll
would be
email
great.
it to Elizabeth. Yeah, I didn't see that. Thank you.
And I'll send it to everybody. Thank you.
That's no problem. Absolutely. I'll send the template to Elizabeth today, and then Elizabeth can get that out to you and share it with you all before our next session. That would be the preference. Oh, let me share with you one last option is the op-ed piece. Yeah, here we go. So I think an op-ed piece is really powerful, and it's powerful for a few reasons. When your organization is identified, the leadership of your organization is identified in a newspaper, it gives you an imprimatur of expertise, and it attracts folks to give to you, maybe from an area that you were not targeting before. So after this op-ed piece, we got calls from folks that we had never engaged with before, foundations, families that lived outside of the area, but were familiar with Long Island. They were either from Long Island and were still reading the newspapers from there and had moved, or they had moved and they had family that still lived there and they wanted their family to give. So it really expands your reach, and it's very simple. All you have to do is email the editor and they tell you the dates that you can send in an op-ed piece. They give you the word limit, and you send it in, and they can use it or not. There's usually like a weekly deadline, and I would try to talk to the editor, regularly, like at least once every year, to kind of talk about some of the things that they were writing about in the newspaper at that time, to make sure that what I was recommending fit in, what I was going to actually write about fit in. So I think that's something for you, to think about as a way to widen your reach. And before we wrap it up, so one of the things I want you to do, and this goes to the issue of tracking as well, when you use a software program like Razor's Edge or Network for the Good, you want to try to include as much information as you know, and what you don't know, you want to make sure you come back and fill in. So these are your affiliations, and the affiliations of the folks that are already engaged in your organization, and also any of your vendors. So I look at vendors as potential donors, and I include them. So every year they're on the invitation list. The folks I do business with, whether it's my lawyer, the accountant, the DJ, the catering hall, these folks, they will give. If they don't give cash, they will give incentive. So are there any questions? Any questions at all? All right, because next week, what we're going to delve into is finding grants, writing the case statement, the actual critical pieces of it, determining your grant goals and objectives, and then how do you evaluate the outcomes? How do you evaluate the grant strategy after you've gone through a cycle? Usually, like a grant cycle is from one point in the year to the next year, like usually like June 30th to maybe July 30th of the next year, whatever it might be. How do you monitor yourself for performance? And sometimes it's not always about how many grants you get. Sometimes it's really about the power of your proposal. Because I always say nothing beats a failure like a try. So when I don't get a grant, particularly, I ask for the score sheet and for a one-on-one evaluation panel. You're always allowed to do that. And I take copious notes. And they are very frank and very open with you about what you did great, what you don't need to change. Because see, what happens is you don't get a grant. What I have found, you don't get a grant and then everybody wants to change the whole proposal the next time. That's not necessarily the right way. You want to know from the actual agency, what did I do wrong? And they'll tell you, oh, the first two sections, don't touch it. We gave you 10 out of 10. But when you got to the board section, we weren't really clear what their goals were. That's simple. You got a 94 out of 100. You don't need to redo your whole proposal. But that's what some people have, they interpret that, oh, I have to go back now and change the whole thing. Not necessarily. So I always ask for a post results discussion. You're often allowed if you don't get the grant. So we'll talk about that next week, how to actually monitor your progress and understand how to evaluate yourself. And I am definitely giving a copy. So I'm going to email Elizabeth the slides and the fundraising template. I will do that today so that you'll have the slides and the one pager for next week. So before we go, can anyone share with us what your goal was for today? Because we want to talk about what actions you can take according to that goal. You can put it in the chat, or you can take yourself off mute and share as well, and we can talk for the remaining time.
We're actually working on something.
Hello, Melody.
Hi. We're actually working on a grant right now, and we missed the last grant we worked on, which was a couple of weeks before. It's key information that they wanted 4 copies made, and someone told us we could just email it, and it was, we were so upset. But we're in the middle of working on a grant now, and the monitoring and progress piece is definitely a weakness for us.
Okay.
So we want to be able to hammer down how to lay out that implementation measure that we're self-funding now going into 4 years, and we want to take it to the next level.
Sure.
So,
Well, you're breaking up just a little bit, Melanie. I think we heard you. You said that you were working on a grant and you were looking at strengthening the monitoring and progress report section. And we're going to talk about
yes,
that. Yeah, we're going to talk about that next week, because these agencies now have really changed. They've pivoted in what they focus on, because they are now in a position where they have to report back, because a lot of foundations got quite a bit of funding post-COVID. And now they have to report back very specifically what they use that money for. So they're asking people to be clear about what their performance measures are. So that we'll talk about that definitely next week. But it was good to meet you, Christine. We hope to see you next week. I know you have to jump off. Hope to see you during expert grant writing next week. Spread the word. You can jump on. We have our tech difficulties worked out. We will start on time, 9 o'clock. We regret that happened, but like Elizabeth said, even in the Zoom environment, things happen, but we've worked out the kinks. I'll be on early, like 8:45, 8:50, like I usually am, and we'll get started at 9, because I have a lot to share with you for next week. I mean, I have a lot more even to talk about today, but I want to take some questions. Any questions or comments? Go ahead,
I
Elizabeth.
want to just remind everybody that we did record this session while you're thinking about your questions, and we will be posting it to YouTube. I'm also going to see about maybe making a web page on the Miller Center page where I can post all of this, all of the examples and everything. So we'll have kind of a place to go, but you'll be getting an email from me probably by tomorrow or Wednesday, once I get information from Nicole and I set that up.
That would be great. Absolutely. That would be great.
And of course, if you talk to anybody who missed this session, they can absolutely still come to any of the future sessions.
So just to make sure we finish on a really strong note, your goals going forward, you looked at what your goal was for today, and then some action items is plan. You know, that's today's goal, you know, is to create a plan, or at least develop a template for a fundraising plan for yourself, breaking down your goal by months or by quarterly events, and then even developing a template for how you're going to integrate that into your staff training. You know, how are you going to ensure that everyone has the elevator pitch down pat? And you can always email me. I'll put my email in the chat. As you all know, I have a listserv. I have a newsletter that I do. Feel free. I'll put my email in the chat, and you can email me your information. And Melanie, I wish you the best with your applications going forward. We're here for you. We celebrate with you. I'm so glad everyone was here today. Any questions before we go, or comments?
Just want to say thank you. This was excellent.
Oh, thank you.